Good morning. I know that everyone is anxious to get back to normal. Everyone's anxious to figure out what our plans are in light of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. And so I wanted to take just a couple minutes this morning to sort of lay out AMBC's plan and then a little bit of the explanation for why we're looking at what we are. So our plan as of today, and of course, like everything, this is tentatively held. We may be able to advance sooner than we thought. We may have to push it back further, prayerfully not. But as we continue to monitor this situation, our biggest concern is to make sure that we're able to serve you safely and wisely. So, as of right now, our plan is to resume Sunday morning worship services on June 7th, that we will return to normal morning worship services on June 7th. We'll continue to have services online for those that are uncomfortable. We'll continue to deliver DVDs to those who are unable to access the online resources. Now, when we reopen, every other pew will be blocked off to help maintain distance between people. We'll encourage families to sit together, but then to have space between different families, ideally the 6 feet recommended by the CDC. In the short term, we will not have any of our children's programs because we want to wait until we know for sure that we can do that safely, that we can maintain a high level of cleanliness, that we can have the teachers that we need. We will have our greeters on standby. They will be wearing masks and they'll be holding the doors open to minimize the number of things that you have to touch when you come in. We will not be passing the offering plates as a potential way of spreading disease. We'll instead have the nice offering boxes in the front foyer and continue to encourage online giving. We will also discourage people from hugging and shaking hands for the time being as we try to maintain the social distance guidance there. We won't have Sunday school or Sunday or Wednesday evening services on campus. Those things will be online as much as possible. Again, this is our tentative plan, the first Sunday in June, to give us time to make sure that we can do everything safely, to give us time to make sure that we meet the guidelines laid out by the governor and the president to make sure that the health of our community is protected. I want to, if you want to stick around and get a little bit of my thought process, I'll do that now. The first thing is, if you saw the presidential guidelines, it was to reopen in 3 stages. After there had been a 2-week period of declining new cases, we were going to enter stage 1. Stage 1 was that churches could reopen with strict social distancing. That's everybody required to wear a mask. That's dismissing families one at a time so that they don't come into contact with each other leaving the building. There's just some very, very stringent rules that I didn't feel like it was feasible for us to enforce. In stage 1, social groups should be 10 people or fewer. And so trying to have Sunday school classes or any activities is just not possible. And vulnerable individuals should continue to shelter in place. The definition of vulnerable individuals is at-risk population who are 65 or older, those with lung disease, asthma, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, kidney disease, liver disease, or weakened immune system. So the at-risk population is quite large, and those people should continue to shelter in place. Stage 2, after another 2 weeks of a downward trajectory in new cases, they encourage churches to utilize moderate social distancing. Those would be the kinds of things that I laid out in our plan for the first week in June. Social groups should be 50 or fewer, and so again, we want to be wise there. The vulnerable individuals should continue to shelter in place, but in stage 2, after 4 weeks of consecutive downward cases, daycares and camps can reopen. We will talk about our church camp later. There's some decisions being made about that now, but remember, at that point, you still can't have groups of more than 50. People are supposed to wear masks, so trying to have church camp in stage 2 is not feasible. Finally, in stage 3, after 6 weeks of consecutive downward cases, The church can utilize limited social distancing protocols, visits to nursing home and hospitals can resume, and vulnerable individuals can return to public if they are careful. And so stage 3 would allow us to take some further steps. The guidance the governor issued this week is for stage 1, allowing Texas to legally enter into stage 1. The first, strongly encourage at-risk population, that's those over 65 or with those diseases that I listed, to watch online. 2, within the service, designate a special area for at-risk population to sit or a separate service for at-risk population. Maintain 6 feet of separation between families, close every other pew, take the temperatures of volunteers and employees, have everyone wash or sanitize their hands when they come in, encourage everyone to wear masks, disinfect seats between services, disinfect any items that people touch in between services. You can see these would be difficult. Sanitizing a pew is difficult. You can see that the taking temperatures, the encouraging everyone to wear masks, that the regulations for stage 1 are strong. Unfortunately, based on the president's guidelines, although the state is giving us the option of being in stage 1, we are not yet in stage 1. I pulled these numbers from the Texas Medical Center website, and you can see in orange there, new cases per day. You can see that we have not had 2 weeks of a consistent downward trajectory. There was one spike and then a sudden drop-off when the social distancing took effect, but otherwise our numbers have been roughly flat. The blue line is a 7-day running average, where I used the day and the previous 6 days and averaged them together to kind of smooth out the bumps. And you can see again that we've not seen much of a decline. For Brazoria County, the same kind of graph. The new cases have been all over the map, and yet the average number of new cases, when you smooth it out, has been flat or slightly increasing. Again, as we see things open up, as we see restaurants open to a quarter capacity, as we see the kind of ongoing changes which will take place, then we will be closely monitoring to see what happens. Prayerfully, things will start to open back up. People will continue to be careful. The weather will help crush this virus, and things will return to normal, and we won't see a spike. But as of right now, we are not yet in stage 1. We haven't yet had the declining cases for 2 weeks, that trajectory which we need. So that was just to give you some insight into what the staff and deacons and I looked at when we were evaluating the wisest course of action. So at this time, we are continuing to wait. We're continuing to be in stage 0. We are planning to resume services as part of stage 2. The regulations for stage 1 would not make it feasible for a church our size or of our temperament to hold services. So we are anticipating that the first Sunday in June we'll be able to do that, resume with those kind of stage 2 protocols, and then reintroduce Sunday evening, Wednesday evening, Sunday school, children's church as it's safe. I don't want to give a whole lot of specifics about that because there's still so much up in the air. But I'd like to ask for your prayers for our first responders, for our leaders, for our healthcare workers, for all the people that are struggling to make wise decisions in this pandemic. I'd like to ask for your prayers for me as we continue to try to serve wisely, for our prayers for our staff. They've been working very, very hard. It is much easier to have everybody here than to organize and distribute everything to do this kind of remote church. For our teachers that are continuing to do their Sunday school classes online, that are continuing to reach out to the kids and adults in their classes, for the volunteers who've been making phone calls to check in on all the people in the church, continue to pray for all of them. And I want to thank all of you for being faithful. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to watch this video to kind of understand what we're doing and where we're coming from. And we want to give God the glory and trust that He is going to restore all things and work all things together for good for those who love Him. So God bless you, and we will see you very soon.